What's up?
Hey, everybody.
Cheers.
Cheers. All right, there it is. Cheers.
Ding.
That's a dark beer.
Yeah. Rasputin.
Stout.
Yeah, Rasputin, something stout. Old Rasputin stout. It's good.
So this is my favorite beer.
I've seen that in stores. It's real
I've
good.
been trying to explain it to you a couple times, like because I know a year ago it really wasn't that available. I mean, it's just a cool logo, but this is the hoppiest.
But I've seen it.
It's the hoppiest IPA. It's so
Really.
It's so good. It's the best flavor. Like, go get it. It's worth the extra couple bucks probably cost. It is an awesome beer.
Where's that brewery from?
Right around the corner, actually. It's in.
No way.
Yeah, it's like where is it? Where is it? It's right. It's literally like super close to us. Revolution Brewing. They're out of Chicago, but I want to say that they're like in Joliet or they're within like a half an hour of us.
Cool.
But yeah, Revolution Brewing. They're really good.
Very awesome. Hoppy.
That's it.
All right. Well, it's been I don't know how many days, but it's been a couple days since we did the last show. A lot of things have happened. I want to say our last show. No. So 2 shows ago was the 1 million mark show.
Yep.
And I can't remember how many days that was, but today we're at 1.7 million people.
It's crazy.
It's a huge jump, man. Huge jump.
It's the exponential growth. Yeah. It's the scary math.
Yeah. And and then 102,000 deaths.
Yeah.
Plus, 102,000 plus deaths. So
yeah, they had. I mean, today, Friday count in New York was something like 775 or 77 or something like that. It's just crazy.
I think New York's leading the world.
Yeah, it is. It's definitely 40% of the United States right now, as far as total cases.
Which
is just like super scary because I get it. It's New York. Just the way that the population, density is.
I'm gonna pull those stats up while you're talking, just to get exactly what New York's at. Keep talking.
Subway. Just like, okay, I get it, but it also is, you just hope that this is not a sign of the rest of what's going to happen to the rest of the country. Hopefully this curve is flattening. I mean, it seems like it is, but hopefully that's going to be sustainable. Trump today was talking about creating a task force for getting back to, getting us back to normalcy. What does that look? What does that mean?
What does that even mean?
Right.
It's not. We're never going back to what we were.
No, we're not. That's for sure. Yeah, it's
Yeah. So
500,000 cases in the United States right now.
500. Is that what you said? 500,000.
Yeah.
Yeah. And 172K is New York.
Yep.
And we're at 18,747 deaths in the U.S. and 7,000, almost 8,000 of those are in New York. It's crazy.
Yeah.
My brother, he works in commercial real estate. He has clients in New York. He was talking to a client who said he knows 10 different people who have died, and that his brother is on life support and is about to die. And
wow.
I was just like, that is a different world than the world that I am in right now, for sure. I don't even know anybody that has it. Oh, no, I don't.
My sister, she lives in New York City, right, blocks away, from Central Park, on the Upper West Side. She's left and has gone to the Hamptons, which is basically an hour and a half northeast of New York. So it's that little, far east, kind of a peninsula. So they've been hanging out there. It was interesting, just kind of thinking about not having that option and being in New York, that's got to be just terrifying to be able to, stay at home, but you're ultimately still in New York City. I mean, you can't go and buy groceries like we can in the burbs. The bodegas are where you go to, to get your groceries. You're not running to, to Costco. You're getting stuff delivered, or you're buying, whatever you can at your local. And I say bodega, it's like a quickie mart, deli, small grocery store, probably the size of a,
Now
some of these
describe
places are like 1,000 square feet. We're talking small places.
describe the Hamptons as far as like it's secluded, how secluded it is versus. I mean, we all kind of know New York City is like people are stepping all over each other. So, kind of describe the Hamptons, because I've heard you talk about it and I kind of guessed, but I want to kind of know a little bit more.
It's very rural. It's similar to probably any suburb in the United States, but more so. So the way that the thing about the Hamptons and that area and other kind of vacation-y spots is most of the people actually have houses in New York and have a house in the Hamptons, and they'll come out to the Hamptons for the summer. So there's kind of one take on the locals opinion in the Hamptons and other areas, not necessarily where my sister is, because of the way that there's a lot more full-time people living there all year long. But they're like, please don't come. Don't come and take our resources. Stay, if you can, stay in your house. They didn't, the community doesn't really feel like the influx of everybody coming to their vacation home to escape is going to be a positive impact on them, because that means all their grocery stores, everything needs to be, ready for the summer. And right now it's not seasonal, so nobody's there. You've got people who live there all year long. They represent in the area probably 20 to 30% of the total, housing and what it is, during the summer when everybody's there. So contentious, but they're safe. They're out. It's kind of like living in a country house. My cousin is a doctor in New York too, and we haven't heard a lot from him. I've talked to my cousin who's or his brother a few times, checking in, and he's just in the trenches. So I don't really know anything now. Maybe we'll know something next week. But my other cousin is in Michigan and is a nurse, pretty experienced, and she's now training other nurses on ventilation equipment and ventilators and respiratory equipment, so that these guys can get up to speed and be ready. So just interesting. Kind of jumped on there a little bit, but
I assume it's like, or tell me if this is right. My brother he lives near LA, but he has a cabin in Tahoe. So he's taken his whole family to the cabin in Tahoe. Right. And, I assume that's kind of like maybe population density of the Hamptons, maybe close or something like that. But the grocery stores are the same way. They don't have big grocery stores there, dude. It's like, if they get an influx of people, the grocery stores probably would feel that, I think. For better or for worse. You got to do what you got to do with your family.
And it's April, so ski season's over. The summer season hasn't really kicked in.
Right. In between.
So, I can't imagine these guys who live in, like Tahoe all year round are going, great, now we've got every summer home, every winter cabin, they're all being filled and being used by the people who own them that usually just rent them out a couple times, over the winter, over the summer. So, if I owned the place, sure as hell I would be there.
Totally. No doubt about it.
No questions asked. But it is an interesting take on the local, the impact of the local communities. There was a couple in Canada who I don't remember where they went to. I read this article last week. They essentially picked up and left their city, I think it was in Montreal, and drove to this 200 population town. Nobody. And they're like, okay, we're going to come out here. And I don't know what their plan was, but essentially The local police said no. The town said get out. Like, we're not having more people. Like, there's no
Wow.
here. You don't live here. You don't need to come and visit. Like, I don't get it. Sorry. I get it that we're safe, but we're also 200 people, and we don't need to be 202. So,
Yeah.
peace out.
Wow. That's
So,
crazy.
yeah, they got booted.
You know, that leads into another topic that I wanted to talk about, but I'm gonna wait for that. But I'm gonna kind of jam down our list here because I have a ton of stuff.
Cool.
So we talked about world cases. We talked about world deaths. One thing worth mentioning is 376,000 people have recovered, and that rate versus death has gone up. So that's great.
Yeah,
I mean,
absolutely.
if anything, that's the rate you want, the thing you want to rise. Let's see, Spain. Spain is, as far as percentages go, is by far the worst. They per 1 million people, they have 3,385 people infected. Per 1 million people, they have 344 people dead, and those like are, and then the next, and these are of major countries. You know, there was a couple small countries.
And remember, Spain, they chose to have their festival, and the beginning of March, that was like 2+3 million people. It's the biggest festival they have every year.
Yeah,
and it's like a 14-day long festival. And I think they ended up cutting it a little short, but they ended up having it, which is like, why?
Crazy. So it's funny, like, so I can totally see the festival being a driving factor for Spain. But then, like, did Italy have kind of a festival, or like, was anything going on? I still can't understand Italy.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I know that just the nature of Italy and the communities and the squares and the way that the towns are, it's just
They're stacked on top of each other. I never see like a house by itself.
Yeah, but you don't hang out in your house in Italy. You go out. You go into the markets and you go. So maybe that was just, and maybe it was the timing. The weather was so nice, and I don't know. I know my son was in Italy on New Year's.
Oh, really? What? Oh, because of his musical thing, huh?
No. He went with my sister. So they they went to Florence, and they were there for 5 days.
Very cool.
All over Siena, Florence, and it's great. Not a bad gig for the kid.
Missed it.
Yeah, totally missed it by luckily by literally 3 weeks.
So, and I'm gonna keep jamming down the list here. So this is an interesting story talking about Italy. In northern Italy, 60 people volunteered to give blood because they were like, well, I'm good to go. I don't have COVID. I'm pretty sure, or I haven't had COVID. And 40 of those 60 people had COVID antibodies in their system, meaning they had it. So
that is crazy.
That is crazy. 66%.
40 healthy people who thought they were fine and good enough to give blood.
That probably had no symptoms, or maybe thought minor cold, or whatever.
Wow.
Pretty nuts, man.
That is nuts. And this is another thing that came up today. 51 patients who have fully recovered from the virus in South Korea have tested positive for a second time.
See, that scares me, man. That's a whole different ballgame.
After they left quarantine, now they're 51 of them retested.
So,
which is like, yeah, you're right, man. That's like, how do you see a light at the end of the tunnel?
You don't, if that's the case. I'm hoping, and I think it's possible that they had maybe a false negative,
right?
When they tested. Clear after they had it. I mean, I don't know. I mean, this is like the only thing that I could think of. Because I hope, or maybe, gosh, if you get reinfected, it's not as bad or something like that. I mean, if I hear people die from their second case of COVID, then I have to think about this whole thing completely different.
Yeah,
it's just like,
Well, I mean, of all the places for this to happen, it's in South Korea, the leader of testing.
Yeah.
They're like the poster child of the whole world right now when it comes to testing. So, yeah. And I read articles of this happening last month in China, but nothing has been corroborated. Obviously, China doesn't really tell anybody anything, so you never really know what you hear.
China, dude, I have fears about China's probably just wrecked right now.
Oh man, well, I've started to, we heard about the Chinese virus. We talked about, people calling it Chinese virus. Call it the CCP virus if you want to go there. Chinese Communist Party virus.
Yep.
It's not the Chinese people. They're victims. They're awful government. So, and yeah, who knows what's going to happen to the Chinese Communist Party? Maybe this will be the catalyst to big change. Who knows?
One could hope. That would be a silver lining, no doubt about it.
Yeah.
And to put my my tinfoil hat on for a moment, not get too deep. There is a lot. The news is definitely starting to talk about the virus coming from a lab as opposed to the virus coming from a bat. That is picking up steam. Whether it's true or not, one would hope it's not true. Hope for humanity and everything, but if that were true, that changes the game too, and a lot of different topics need to start to get talked about, especially with blame, because I mean, even the whole it being from a bat thing, the blame's there. People are blaming and pointing fingers and going, "Hey, China needs to pay." But if this becomes a lab thing, and I'm not saying it is, but just
right.
To speculate again, tinfoil hat, if it were, that changes things big time, huge time. That gets that's a hot topic as far as China being unhappy with that coming up. And again, it's picking up steam for whatever reason. I don't know.
Well, I think
I've seen it a lot.
I haven't really kind of dropped that about a month ago. I just was reading a number of things and just kind of digging into the wild animals and the way that food is consumed in China and the level of inconsistency with animals, wild animals who are totally different than what we experience here, who are domestically raised for, to be eaten. But then, yeah, there's some weird stuff that's happened. There was a professor who was trying to leave the country, and this was the second week of January, where he was the third week of January, where he's trying to leave the United States before the lockdown, before they started to close off flights. And he was caught at Boston Logan Airport with 21 vials of something. And he was
a female scientist.
Oh, was it a female scientist? My bad.
Yeah.
I just assumed the evil scientist is a...
They knew, they had a hunch that she had taken them. If I'm getting I'll just say I could be totally wrong with my details and whatever. But what I heard is the lab in Canada where they got the vials knew something was up and had question. Her behavior was questionable. Then she left abruptly, and they followed her and kind of pinched her at the airport. So it wasn't like she kind of like ran into some TSA guy and he's like, "Hey, what are those vials?" So they kind of knew something was going on.
Oh yeah, it was like Jack Bauer shit, man.
Yeah,
it's like 24. They knew exactly what they were doing. They went for it. My camera's a little fuzzy again.
That's all right. There you go. But yeah, again, I'm not going to say I have less info than I could possibly think to even make a guess on whether it's in the lab or in a bat. I'm not a scientist. I don't freaking know.
Well, and
I'm
maybe
just like speculating the conversation.
Maybe that's why China, last week was, there's internal documents that are, saying essentially China's trying to blame America for this and saying that this is our fault, suggesting that we created it in a lab and brought it to them. And really, it's like, okay, man. So are you saying that only to get ahead of it so that it's coming back to bite you in the ass? And who knows? But I'll tell you what, if China, if they find proof and they determine, with any certainty that it was created in a lab in China, I would be willing to bet that's the end of the government there.
It would,
that the Chinese
start talking World War
Yeah, I would say
topics.
Not even World War. The rest of the world saying you're now like every single penny you guys make is going to be to pay this back and to fix what you've done somehow. You know, like you are now China is the indentured servant of the world. If that happened, and anything you guys do, it's like bring it back and figure out how to fix it. I mean, how could we control that or force that? Who knows?
And that totally rhymes with Germany, war reparations, and us the way Germany was saddled with paying stuff back, and that led to World War II. Very arguably led to World War II. So I mean, it's a touchy subject. I'm not even going to go 2 steps ahead of things, but just say like that's a hot topic, man. Like there are so many things to talk about. If that's the case, I feel like I'd rather. I don't even want to think about that because that's not a great. That's not stage.
Yeah, I know. I think honestly,
I agree with you.
What happened with China is unfortunate, man. I think there was about a week there where the WHO and China were giving good communication, and we all thought, wow, they're really trying to be transparent and making an effort.
Seemingly.
Yeah, except no, they're not.
Now you bring up the WHO. That's really interesting. You see that Trump said he's going to stop funding to the WHO?
Yeah. Yeah, we do $500 million annually to them, which is we are by far the largest largest donator to that organization by a factor of 2. So how is it that the WHO can't even say the word Taiwan and they refuse to acknowledge that Taiwan's a country? What the fuck?
Yeah, what a shame, dude. What a shame.
How did you get there?
That's an unforgivable video clip that they will never live down.
Yeah. No, and it's like I don't understand it. I mean, I don't understand. I get capitulating in some capacity to the people who ultimately control so much and are responsible for so much. Okay, fine. So let's stop that. Let's learn from this right now, and let's go back to Made in America or Made in Taiwan or Made in fill in the blank. Not a country that is going to leverage their their power over you, and you can't trust them.
Yeah. Agreed. Okay, moving on. We're at time. We're getting there, but I still have a lot of good topics to talk about. So, focusing on the U.S., unemployment has gone absolutely parabolic.
16.5 million files.
Yeah, so 3 weeks ago it was 3.5 million jobless claims. Then the next week it was 6.6, upgraded to 6.8 million jobless claims just yesterday. It was another 6.6 million jobless claims. So, and I'm gonna for effect here, I'm going to share my screen. Let me get prepared for this, just to put this all in perspective with all of the different recessions that we've had. And I think this really kind of paints a picture. Just give me maybe another 10, 15 seconds here. Okay. Coming right up here. So, of course, it's not loading. So here we go. Here's the 5-year. Just, absolutely. And this is just the last 3 weeks, this little thing right here. But if you look at as far back as this number has been calculated to 1970, you're dealing with all of the recessions in our lifetime. The Great Recession, dot-com bust, 87, early 80s with the Soviet stuff. Absolutely just not even, there's just no realm for comparison. It's its own thing. And let's see here, I'm coming back. Oops. Yeah. And one thing I wanted to get to. So in the Great Recession in 2008, it took us 18 months to get to what we've gotten to in basically 18 days, 21 days to be exact. And again, it's a little fuzzy math, but like this is a different ball game. I feel like, because this is just starting to unfold. Just starting to unfold.
I mean, it's not like there's just such a domino effect that we can go through. Let's just talk about like one industry for 1 second. So look at the restaurant industry. So the employees, the waiters, the cooks, everybody's fired or furloughed, laid off, whatever you want to call it, right? So they don't have a job. Now I've got 90 days, easy 90 days, probably more like, 120 days, I don't know, but call it 5 months, right? Now, how are they going to pay rent? How are they going to continue to keep the restaurant? What's going to happen there? You can't expect every landlord in the country just to say, well, okay. These landlords, it's not just paying their mortgage, it's their livelihood too.
Right.
So the landlord that's charging the rent is maybe that's part of their salary and that's what helps put food on their table and that's what helps so okay, they can't just say no. So what happens in 5 months? Let's say everything's great. Everybody go back to work. Everything's great. Are the restaurants going to have places? Are the restaurants, are they going to be able to turn a switch and open up everything? And we're all just going to go back to normal? No, it's going to be a really slow ramp up.
Yeah.
Transportation industry, same thing. Events, same thing. The XFL, that's another thing we didn't talk about. XFL today announced they're not.
Yep.
They're suspending their season indefinitely. They're not going to probably ever come back.
I hope that's not true. But I saw that news too. It's like,
I hope it's not true too, but man, talk about a tough break, man. They came out 20 years ago and just because they couldn't really get the numbers and it wasn't, the timing of the season wasn't right. They came back and they did it right this time.
They did.
Timing of the season was perfect. Coming right off of football season now, everybody's still hyped from the Super Bowl and we're starting this new season and transition right from NFL to XFL. And that's gone. Just sucks, man. All those athletes, who worked their asses off and, colleges may not, they're D2, D3 colleges that, survive on athletics, and survive on the the revenue, that can be generated and some of the scholarships that are allowed at D1, some of these schools are going to significantly reduce what sports they even allow. Some universities may shut down. They might not be able to afford.
Oh yeah, I think there's some of every industry is gonna not come back.
Yeah,
I think that's for sure.
We work in in transportation, and I know personally lots of businesses that are totally shut down. Yeah. Guys that are like, I don't know if I'll ever we'll ever recover from this. Yeah, this is what I do my whole life. I can't I can't go and be a builder. I can't turn over tomorrow and be a baker. This is what I do. And now I don't have anything to do.
Yeah. A lot of, not to pick on Trump, and this probably was true with Obama too, but like jobs are always the thing nowadays. And the jobs that were created were, one, not manufacturing. So that stinks because we need to make things here, especially now more than ever. But they were in travel, restaurants, and leisure. Travel, restaurants, and leisure are probably the hardest hit out of this whole thing.
Yeah.
So that just sucks the air right out of all that,
It does, and it stinks because he's has been touting, and rightfully so, his employment numbers are the highest in decades. And now that's all gone.
Yeah, it's gonna be tough, man. And I know, when it comes back, I don't know if I'm gonna rush to go out to my local restaurant either. I'm gonna wait for other people to be my guinea pig. To be honest, just be completely honest, man. I'm not gonna be. There's a restaurant down the road that I love so much, and in my mind the other day, I'm like, man, the first thing I want to do is go to that restaurant. I hope they're still around. But then when I thought about it, I'm like, I don't know if I want to be the first people in the door there. I just is the restaurant going to be able to spin up with all of their, get the food right away and things go back to normal, and is flattening the curve enough? I just don't know. So
no, it's not.
It's not
definitely not. No, it's not. I mean, the curve that's great. It means we're safer, but it doesn't mean we're not safe. I mean, that's what I mean. It doesn't mean we're safe. Yeah. That's what I meant to say. It doesn't mean we are safe. Until we have a vaccine and everybody has the vaccine, or we've created a herd immunity, and if this thing is potentially, created in a lab somewhere, that means a whole different thing about what the vaccine could mean. There's a whole unknown there that we don't know if it was that we don't know if it was truly, created. So that's just another X factor. We don't know what that means.
Yeah.
But they do read a lot about how this is incredibly crafty from a viral standpoint. This virus is smart and can change and does things in ways that people who are researching this just don't understand.
Yeah. We still have lots of questions and not enough answers.
Absolutely.
Okay, so moving on. So it's Easter weekend, and to set this topic up, there is definitely a growing frustration with the lockdown in the way, at least in the United States and different areas of the United States, probably not the New Yorks and probably not the Louisianas, but other states that are less impacted are becoming frustrated with the lockdown. And, there's kind of a spectrum of, hey guys, don't go into public places, and if we catch you, we'll tell you, hey, can you get back in your house? And then there's things like full other side of the spectrum, people walking down the street, hey, I'm going to arrest you, you're getting fined, there's two of you walking down the street. So there's kind of like, two different, again, sides of the spectrum. And there's a growing frustration in various parts of the United States with the lockdown in general and the orders to stay inside. And specifically, kind of, I would say probably the best peak example is there are militias in Idaho that are saying this is not okay. You cannot tell us to stay inside our houses. We should have the right to peaceably assemble. And there is the Bundy militia, for lack of a better name, but I don't know if everybody knows Bundy, but the guys that dealt with the Nevada land rights thing with the government, that said this weekend we are going to hold an Easter service and we will use force if necessary if they try and shut us down. And they say, they throw out the number 1,000. We'll have 1,000 people there at the Easter service. So that is a thing. People are concerned. And it's there are many perspectives.
It's just so frustrating. Like, okay, man, get your guns and protect your rights, because this is the time to stand up and be a dumbass. And God, I just don't understand it. It's just.
I will take the opposite side of the argument from you. I do understand it.
I do understand it. Don't get me wrong. Yeah, that's not what I do understand. Don't tell me what to do. You don't have the right to do that. But I don't understand. We're going to have 1,000-person Easter, service, and you can't do anything about it. Like, I don't get that. I don't get it from a standpoint of your community and the people that you like. If you care and if you're smart about this and you can see the potential risk, why would you risk those people?
Yeah, and I hear you. And yes, everything you just said, yes. I can't argue with any of that.
Is that 2-hour service worth it?
To some people, Easter. So one, Easter to the Christian community is the most important day of the year.
Yeah.
To most people. And then to put it through the lens of the Constitution says we have the right to peacefully assemble, and we have the right to practice our religion. So the way I see it is, you absolutely have the right to do that. Laws cannot be made, but if you put your thinking cap on, you wouldn't do that, right? So,
and that's why my knee-jerk reaction is to be angry, because they're leveraging this as if they're being persecuted in a way that isn't really happening. The government isn't saying you don't have the right to go to church, don't practice your religion. Like, the reason that those laws were created were to stop that persecution and create a boundary and a standard. And it doesn't mean that the government has the right to come in and do what clearly constitutionally they can't do. But there is, like you said, a sense of reasonable perspective that you should apply.
But people are being arrested. People are being arrested for attending church. The government is arresting people for this. So
I don't know that I read anybody being arrested for attending.
No, that's true. That's true.
I thought it was just
they're arresting pastors. They're arresting the leaders of the churches.
Yeah, right. The pastors.
So I would say that's that's in line. So again, it's weird. It's a weird world we live in, and two, the Constitution, as far as I read it, protects the right to assemble, protects the right for what these guys are saying. But the question for me is, the concern is the risk that if you want to go get coronavirus by yourself, go for it, dude. You can go get coronavirus and possibly die. But if you're going to give it to me, we have a problem, right? So, and that's a very gray zone, right? It's a very gray zone, and I'm conflicted, and there are certain parts of the country that are not experiencing a high rate of infection and death, and
there's a lot of negative, to being locked up and being quarantined. Talked to somebody today who has a situation with their relative or their father-in-law who has dementia, and FaceTime and phone calls isn't really cutting it, and they can't go and visit them because they're at risk, because they're still out and could potentially be asymptomatic. And it's like, yeah, think about that. Think about those situations. But yeah, man, I get it. I am torn too, but I also feel like this is war. I mean, however we want to put it, that we're at war, against this virus. People are dying. There is no, there's no other, logical response other than to do this, quarantine based on what we've seen. I don't get it. I mean, I guess you're right. Sure. If the 1,000 people want to go to church and take their own risk, okay. But then what do you do with those 1,000 people? You just let them go and do whatever the hell they want afterwards? And they're just like, okay, they made their decision to go to the church that one day. Now they're infecting the rest of the community who may be atheist or Jewish, or Muslim or whoever, who don't think about this from a Christian church perspective. And okay, so that doesn't have anything to do with church, in my opinion. It has to do with everybody and the time that we're in, addressing what we need to address right now.
Yeah,
I don't see it. It's hard for me to see this as a persecution thing, but I also do, I do understand people living in places where there's nothing going on going, I'll do what I want.
But people that don't leave their house, and this is not the answer. I'm just putting thoughts out there. People that don't want to get the virus stay in their house. They stay in their house, they're not going to get the virus.
Yep.
They are fine. They are not at risk by anybody else going to church who potentially get the virus if they stay in their house.
We all have to go to the grocery store.
That's right. So I was just about to mention that. The gray zone is the grocery store, right? So in a perfect world, we'd know who, I don't know. A perfect world would be like, hey, you can't come to the grocery store if you, but I mean, don't people that go to the grocery store risk getting the virus?
Absolutely.
So it's just, I don't know, man. It's a tough one. It is a tough one. I mean, I'm still with you in that, like, I'm religious. I'm not going to church this weekend. Easter is very important to me.
Yep.
I'm lucky that, and I think Christians are pretty lucky in general, just based on looking at YouTube. Churches all over the place have online services.
Absolutely.
You know, and that, for me and my family, I feel like it's the smart decision. I feel like good enough, for lack of a better term. I'm fine with it. You know, I'm trying to keep us out of things. But you brought up a good topic in that, like, my parents are really close geographically. They're right down the road, maybe a 2-minute drive. And I go shopping for them. I tell them to stay inside. My dad has some issues. He's in his 80s, so he needed a light bulb change, or kind of basically what happened. So I went over there. I went gloves, mask, and I changed the light bulb for him. But if to the extreme example, if a cop said, no, you can't go over to your dad's house and help him with that, I'd be like, then we're gonna have an issue right now, because I'm going over to my dad's house. You know what I mean? So I'm not the guy going to the 1,000-person militia service, but I am the guy helping my dad. So it's just a gray zone, man. I don't know. It's not, we're not in a great situation, clearly. I don't have an answer.
But you're not calling the neighborhood over to your house to teach a light bulb changing class.
True.
You know? And I don't think that that's equatable to Easter service, right? But it's just...
No, but I get what you're saying.
The idea of these people, in groups.
Yeah.
So it's like today I took my daughter on a ride. We were riding around on the scooter, and I fixed my little scooter and was tooling around the neighborhood just to get some fresh air and just have some fun. So dropped her back off, went back out. I was like, I'm just going to drive down to the forest preserve where we have Boy Scout camping sites out there. They're pretty big. It's like a few minutes away from our house. So I went out there, and there were like 20 cars in the parking lot, and people are walking around the trails, and it's a big area. So there's definitely lots of room. There's miles and miles of trails so you can go walking around in. And these two kids were like riding skateboards in the parking lot, and I happened to just park my scooter real quick, and I'm just looking at my phone. And like one of the kids like came up to me, and he was like 3 feet away from me, like riding his skateboard, and kind of fell off his skateboard in a second, and then he was like, and I just looked over. I was like, how is it that we're like, how did you get on your skateboard and ride towards me, dude? I was like, I don't want to turn around and ream you, but I almost did. I was just like, looked it over. I was just like, really, man?
Kids, man. I saw this.
And they're like breathing heavy and like running. I was just like,
yeah. You're like, I saw the same thing the other day with a kid that kind of like was riding his scooter and then dropped it. Kind of like kids do, just fucking throw the scooter down, right? And he just kind of walks over to a pack of adults that are walking, and I'm like, oh, those adults have a tough decision right now. I mean, like, what are they going to do? But luckily, I actually didn't even see how it turned out. But I was just like, it's a tough one. Kids, I love kids, but kids are stupid. There's just no two ways to do it.
Parents are stupider.
Parents are
stupider. I mean, I know that there are a bunch of kids in our downtown area and a bunch of kids that I've seen who don't live together.
Yeah,
they're all, and because of our, entitled youth, parents can't say no to their children, and they're letting their kids go and do whatever they want.
Yeah.
Or letting them go out and play or go out downtown. It's like, okay.
Dude,
they're all hanging out next to each other, looking at each other's phones right over each other's shoulders, and it's like, okay, that's
kicking the ball back and forth to each other,
Yeah, playing volleyball, playing basketball, I don't know.
So think about this. So Easter, you and I are on the same page. I'm not going to go to church on Easter. But what if we're talking Christmas and they say you can't go to church on Christmas? And we're not trying to get religious, but like just to put time in perspective. If things are still an issue in December and we're still locked, I mean, what do you do? I'm not staying in my house at that point because you can't hide forever.
You can't hide forever.
You can't hide forever, right? And what happens when you're like, it's still out there, but I'm done hiding. I mean, what do you do?
Great quote that was always above my dad's desk, and I remember it, or not always, but for a good part of my youth, it was ships in the harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are made for.
That is a great one. Way to bring it home.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. So I'll be honest. If this is happening in Christmas, nobody's going to be arresting anybody for going to church because there'll be roving bands of criminals. Everybody who's been laid off and the impact of that financially. If we get to Christmas and we're still sitting in our houses,
let out of prison.
like, everybody's screwed.
But so that's the extreme example. But it's like it's where in the middle is that.
Yeah.
Is the middle.
And at what point is it really the police officer's job to be doing that? I get
no, it's not. It's clearly not by the book.
Well,
it's the police officer's job.
No, it's not by the book.
It's the opposite.
I get the ringleader thing, saying, okay, these individuals are bringing together massive groups. Hold stores accountable. Arrest the manager of this grocery store that allowed everybody to pile in and not create social distancing after everybody knew it was already a problem. Arrest the people who are, setting up these voting booths, for this primary and allowing people to literally
oh my God,
vote. It's like, I get it. Politics is important. If you're a Democrat, you're fired up and you want Trump out of the White House. But at what cost?
Totally.
How is it that we're shutting everything down and these primaries are still I don't understand that at all.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm not a Trump fan, but I'm not probably on the spectrum of Trump hater. But I know a lot of people that really dislike Trump, and I think they would even be fine with all right, let's just delay things,
right,
a little bit because there's a priority here. So not everybody, but there are people.
I mean, live free or die, but not really.
Yeah.
Yeah,
not live free and die.
We're not. Did I say or? I said or. Yeah.
No, you said it right. I'm just saying.
Yeah, it's live free or die.
Yeah, that's what you said. But I'm saying.
Oh, okay. All right.
People that live free, whatever. But let's end it. Let's end it because I think the quote above your dad's desk, ships in harbor are safe. I think that is a perfect thing to end on because there's no answer, there's no gray zone, there's a spectrum. Yeah. And I think each side of the spectrum we all know is the side of the spectrum, but it's the middle that is that nobody knows the answer to right now. Nobody knows what it is. And ideally everything's over in a month, but
that's not gonna happen.
Yeah, exactly. But okay.
So ships in the harbor are safe, but that's not what ships are made for.
I love that. That's a great saying.
Cheers, buddy.
Okay. Cheers,
be
bud.
safe, everybody.
Yeah, everybody be safe. This is a long one, but it was a good show, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, signing off. Peace.